Hi, I'm Father Marshall Shelley. I'm the rector at St. Peter's here in Spotswood, and I'm sitting in the St. Francis Garden. This is a garden we use for the direct interment of cremated remains of those who have gone to sleep in Christ. Behind me is a memorial wall where we record the names of those who have been interred just past me there. And I thought it'd be a good place to come and sit and talk to you all for a moment or two. It's Maundy Thursday. It's been raining. We had a huge storm go through, thunder and lightning, and it's still drizzling a little bit. The wind is blowing, whipping the trees back and forth, and it's a day that feels kind of portentous. I wanted to take a little bit of time to talk about both where St. Peter's is and I think where we are as people of faith as we prepare as Christians to go into the great 3 days of our holiest season in the calendar, Holy Week. It is a time of not only contemplation but also experiencing in real time, day to day and hour to hour, an active memory of what it means to be a follower of Jesus, particularly those who followed him the last days of his life. Maundy Thursday is the day that we gather as a church to remember two things. One is to remember the gift of Eucharist, something that right now in COVID-19 experience and with the pandemic we are deprived of the opportunity to share, which is heartbreaking. The other is another commandment that we receive from God, a singular one, to love one another. And the kind of love that Jesus is talking about is not just a love that's an abstract. It's not one we experience as an idea or even an ideal. It is something that is true and real and visceral, something that reminds us not only of who we are and what we are, but also what we are called to be, and reminds us of what we are capable of. A few moments ago you saw me in the masks that we're all asked to wear, the gloves we are asked to wear in order not so much to protect ourselves from the transmission of virus, but instead to prevent ourselves from becoming a vector of infection for others. It is a way we can serve one another, care for one another, love one another. It's something that's important that we remember in this day when Christians are so accustomed to coming together and being together, being able to share the peace, being able to share the Eucharist, being able to share the personal contact that reminds us just how materially bound we are in our bodies and our faith to each other. Instead, we are asked to, for a time, journey apart, to be at a distance. And we respect that, again, out of love for one another. The final act that Jesus took to care for those around him and remind them how to care for each other was that when he was at table with his friends, he got up, took off his outer robe, as many priests and ministers of the gospel do during this evening's celebrations when times are more normal, to divest himself of his outer dress garments and instead, wearing his basic garment, tie a towel around his waist and wash the feet of his disciples. He did so to show them that even the basest task of the lowest servant in the household is one we can embrace as we seek to share our love for one another, to serve one another. This came up in our Bible study this week. There is a member of the Bible study who is a former nurse who is in charge of prepping patients for surgery, and one of the things she had to do before surgeries was to wash patients' feet. She struggled with that, as we all would. Not everyone is a fan of feet. I watch it every year as I see people struggle to decide whether they want to get their feet washed or not. It is not something many people would ask for and enjoy. She remembers vividly a patient who, when she went to wash her feet, remarked on how, as a member of her faith, this is something that her priest did every Maundy Thursday, and she always avoided it. And how in this moment, when she was preparing for surgery, this traumatic moment in her life, someone was doing this for her, and she finally understood why. Why is this happening to me? Why am I experiencing this gift from another person's hands? And that member of our Bible study remarked that it was a transformative moment for her in her work as well, and she realized what a gift it was, what a service it was that she could render. So as we move through Maundy Thursday, as we experience this time apart, I ask you to please be mindful of ways you can serve. For some, it's simple gloves and masks in order to prevent infection. For others, it may be making sure that your neighbors have enough to eat. Those older members of our communities who tend to be more isolated and cut off get a chance to hear from folks, not just their own family, but maybe a friend or two or a neighbor. Take the time in this amazing era we live in with so much technology around us to share some of yourself. Even though we cannot touch, we can still serve. I bid you peace and grace, and I invite you to join us tomorrow at St. Peter's virtually at 12 noon for our Good Friday liturgy. I realize the wind has been blowing. I hope the audio isn't too bad on this. Take care and God bless.